Were marked before the noise learned your name, and that mark has not faded in the long road you have walked. You may have stood in ordinary rooms that did not look holy at all, yet something inside you kept refusing to go numb. The sun may have risen over streets, porches, buses, and small kitchen tables, but the deeper light was already working in places no one else could see. I am speaking to the part of you that has been carrying quiet proof without applause. You have felt overlooked, but you have not been overlooked by the one who writes names where human eyes stop searching. Even when you could not explain why certain doors closed, your spirit kept sensing that refusal was not rejection. It was a guardrail, a mercy, a correction of direction, a hand on the shoulder when the road bent toward less. There are moments when heaven does not shout, it simply confirms. And in that confirmation, the soul learns to breathe again. Today is not about making you bigger in the eyes of others. It is about reminding you that your hidden place has already been seen. There are marks that only appear after pressure, like ink that becomes visible when heat passes over the page. You know something of that kind of life, because the pressure has not been abstract for you. It has had the shape of unanswered messages, delayed work, quiet disappointment, and the ache of being the one who keeps showing up. It has had the shape of sitting at the edge of your bed before dawn, staring at a wall that gave nothing back. It has had the shape of walking through your day with a smile that covered a tired chest. Yet even there, something in you remained tender enough to listen. That tenderness is not weakness, it is evidence that your heart has not been sealed shut. The mark of God often rests on the one the world tries to overlook, the one who keeps faith without a stage. That is why the ordinary details around you matter so much right now. The cup on the table, the sound of a fan, the phone face down, the unfinished task, the room with thin morning light, all of it can become a witness. You are not being abandoned inside the pattern, you are being revealed through it. What looked like delay has been a form of shaping. When a hand writes with care, attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. The letters do not appear all at once, and when God confirms a life, the process is often slower than the hunger for proof. You may have wanted a clear sign with no ambiguity, something bright enough to settle every question in one breath. Instead, you were given recurring impressions, repeated convictions, and a strange peace that returned after each storm. That peace is not random. It is the same kind of steadying presence that kept Elijah moving when the wilderness was loud, and it is the same kind of quiet assurance that steadied Daniel when the night seemed sealed. You are not asked to imitate their story, only to recognize the same faithful thread in your own. The mark on your life has shown itself in how you kept praying after disappointment, how you kept speaking kindly after being misunderstood, how you kept a conscience when cynicism would have been easier. Even your tears have had a meaning, because they have not been wasted in the dark. They have watered a field you cannot yet measure. I know the soul does not always feel chosen when it is tired, but tiredness is not a verdict. It is only evidence that you have carried more than one person should carry alone. There is a reason certain memories return at unexpected times, especially when you are washing dishes, folding clothes, or standing at a sink while water runs over your hands. The body remembers what the mind tried to survive. It remembers the tightening in the throat, the long silence after bad news, the awkward smile that had to be kept in place for the sake of everyone else. It also remembers the moments of rescue, though those are often quieter. A text that arrived just when your chest was heavy, a conversation that interrupted your downward spiral, a verse that met you in the exact sentence you needed. That is how confirmation often comes, not as fireworks, but as a chain of small mercies. The mark of God in a person is not always a dramatic event. Sometimes it is the way mercy keeps returning to the same address. You have been carried by more than your discipline. You have been carried by grace that did not announce itself with trumpets. And because of that, you are still here, still listening, still open enough to receive. That openness is precious. It means the seal has not been broken by pain. You may have wondered whether the pattern in your life was only your imagination, but the repeated movement, the repeated restraint, and the repeated protection are too coherent to dismiss. You were spared from what would have bent you in the wrong direction. You were slowed where speed would have hurt you. You were interrupted where your pride might have taken a shortcut. That does not mean every pain was pleasant or every answer arrived in time you preferred. It means the hand behind your story has been wiser than your fear. Think of the path of Joseph, not as a story of easy ascent, but as a life where betrayal, confinement, and waiting all became part of a larger confirmation. In your own life, the prison may have looked like limitation, but it was not the end of identity. The room was smaller than the calling. The delay was narrower than the promise. The silence was not empty. It was full of unseen work. And the mark you carry is beginning to speak through your endurance, not just your gifts. That is why the ache in you has not destroyed you. It has refined what could survive carrying the next weight. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes when you are surrounded by people and still feel unknown. You answer messages, you complete tasks, you keep your tone measured, and yet inside you there is a place that no crowd can enter. That place can become sacred when it is surrendered. Not every hidden season is punishment. Some hidden seasons are where the true name is protected from cheap voices. You have lived long enough to know that being seen by everyone is not the same as being known by God. The hidden place can feel like a closed door, but it can also be a shelter while your roots deepen. The roots do their most important work where no one claps. They learn the soil, they learn the weight of the ground, they learn how to hold when the wind arrives. In that same way, your inward life has been learning how to hold. You may not have noticed it while it happened, but your patience became sturdier, your discernment sharper, and your compassion less theatrical. These are not small things. They are the early signs of a life that has been confirmed under pressure. What grows in hiddenness often survives in public. If your life has felt like an old corridor with doors that do not open, it is because one form of identity is ending while another is being set in place. You may have carried labels given by fear, by family expectations, by failure, or by the version of you that had to survive too much too soon. But labels are not seals. They are only temporary tags, and God does not confuse them with truth. The mark on you is deeper than the opinion of the last person who misunderstood you. It is deeper than the role you were forced to play to keep peace. It is deeper than the habit of shrinking so others would not feel threatened. Right now, that hidden confirmation is pressing gently against the surface of your days. It shows up when you cannot quite explain why you no longer want the same things, why the same conflict no longer has the same power, why the old appetite has lost its taste. Do not rush that shift. It is not confusion. It is reorientation. The true mark does not just tell you who you are, it also tells you what you can no longer carry. And that kind of clarity can feel costly before it feels free. Somewhere along the way, you were taught to distrust quiet certainty, as though only dramatic emotion counted as truth. But the deepest confirmations are often the calmest ones. They settle in the body before they become words. You feel your shoulders lower, your breath lengthens, your mind stops racing long enough to hear a sentence you had ignored before. That inner settling is not nothing. It is one of the ways heaven reminds you that you are not lost. There is a kind of courage that does not shout. It simply remains. It remains when the answer is delayed. It remains when the door is shut. It remains when your name is not mentioned in the room where decisions are made. That courage has been forming in you. It is part of the mark. You may have thought your strongest evidence would come from what others say, but the quiet places in your own chest are often the better witness. They tell the truth without performance. They tell you that something has changed. They tell you that you are not returning to who you were before the pressure. You are becoming someone steadier, someone less easy to bend, someone ready for a confirmation that does not need to shout to be real. If even one of these signs has landed in you, if your chest has recognized the shape of this moment, type 888 in the comments. That simple act is not magic. It is a small agreement with what has been confirmed in your spirit. It is a quiet way of saying that overflow is already near enough to touch. Your writing of those words is a witness that you did not miss the moment. So type 888 and come back to me. Do not rush past the meaning of that small response. The smallest act of agreement can become a doorway of remembrance. When you return, bring your attention back to the place where peace first entered. Let it stand there a little longer. The story is still unfolding, and the next movement is not weaker than the first. It is only deeper. Sometimes confirmation comes in the form of a closed hand opening slowly. You expected one answer, and instead you received a process. You wanted instant clarity, and instead you were given enough light for the next step. That is not a denial. It is guidance. The one who marks you does not need to overwhelm you to lead you. He can guide by inches. He can lead by peace. He can also lead by holy interruption, by a door that would not stay open, by a plan that broke apart before it could consume you. You may not have understood it then, but you are beginning to understand it now. This is why your story has felt both frustrating and protected. The same hand that withheld one thing has preserved another. The same mercy that disappointed your timetable rescued your soul. And because of that, your life is speaking a language that only patience can read. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being taught how to recognize the difference between motion and destiny, between noise and direction, between reaching and receiving. That lesson is part of your mark. There are days when you look in the mirror and feel the distance between who you were and who you are becoming. The face is the same, but the weight behind the eyes has changed. The shoulders carry less performance and more truth. The voice is slower to explain itself. The heart is less eager to beg for what it already knows it cannot force. This is how a marked life matures. It becomes less anxious about proving and more willing to remain. The world may call that passivity, but heaven calls it strength under surrender. You have not stopped caring. You have stopped trying to earn what was meant to be received. That is a holy shift. It often comes after too many nights of trying to control outcomes that belong to God alone. You may notice it in the way you pray now, with fewer polished sentences and more honest breath. You may notice it in the way you no longer chase every open door. You wait to see whether peace walks through with it. This is the kind of wisdom that confirms a person from the inside out. And yes, it can feel lonely while it is forming. But loneliness is not the same as absence. The same life that once felt scattered can begin to gather itself around a single center. In the kitchen while the kettle warms, in the car while you sit before turning the key, in the bedroom while the room is still dim, you start to feel that center again. It does not erase the losses, but it orders them. It tells you which losses were truly losses and which were only removals. That distinction matters. Not everything that left your life was meant to stay. Not every farewell was a theft. Some departures were the mercy of God preserving what you could not yet see. This is why wisdom arrives with grief and relief in the same breath. You mourn what ended, and you also realize why it could not continue. The mark on your life includes the capacity to survive both feelings without collapsing into confusion. That capacity is a gift. It means your inner world is not ruled by the loudest voice. It means your future is not at the mercy of the last disappointment. It means your soul is learning to read the difference between what hurts and what harms. That is part of confirmation too. There is an old ache in you that still tries to ask whether being chosen will cost you too much. And yes, it will cost you comfort in some places. It will cost you the illusion that you can belong everywhere without consequence. It will cost you the habit of saying yes when your spirit has already said no. But what is returned will be greater than what is required. Peace returns, integrity returns, strength returns, a cleaner conscience returns, a more honest joy returns, even your laughter returns differently, less strained, more whole. That is the exchange hidden inside a marked life. The mark does not make everything easy. It makes you unable to settle for less than truth. That is why some people will not understand your changes. They met the version of you that could be managed. The new version is more rooted, less available to fear, more willing to be misunderstood if that is the price of staying aligned. This is not pride. It is obedience wearing a quieter face. And obedience has a way of protecting the soul from the slow poison of compromise. There are moments when a single sentence can change the atmosphere of an entire afternoon. You hear it while walking past a window, while sitting at a desk, or while standing at the sink, and suddenly you know you have crossed an invisible line. Something in you says, this is not the same day anymore. That is how revelation sometimes feels. It does not always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it arrives as recognition. And recognition is powerful because it takes the soul out of drift. You stop floating. You start aligning. That alignment may not impress anyone else, but it matters more than applause. The mark of God is often visible first in what you stop chasing. You stop chasing certain approvals. You stop chasing conversations that drain you. You stop chasing the version of belonging that required you to betray your own peace. This stopping is not loss. It is preservation, and preservation is one of the deepest forms of love. When you begin to understand that, shame loses some of its grip. You realize that your boundaries are not walls built from fear. They are doors that can open in the right season and remain shut in the wrong one. The road you have taken has not been smooth, but it has not been meaningless. Even the rough parts have left a pattern, and patterns become legible when the heart is ready to read them. You may look back and see a series of interruptions, but heaven sees a sequence of protections. You may see missed chances, but heaven sees preserved purpose. You may see an uneven path, but heaven sees a thread that never broke. That thread has been leading you through moments you could not name at the time. A conversation that ended too soon. A job that did not last. A friendship that changed shape. A season where you had to learn how to stand without visible support. All of it has been teaching you something about where your strength truly comes from. The mark on your life does not erase your humanity. It reveals how deeply human you still are while being held by mercy. That is a rare thing. And if you have felt fragile, that fragility has not disqualified you. It has made you honest, which is often the first door to becoming whole. In the middle of your ordinary day, the confirmation may come like a small lamp switched on in a hallway. Nothing dramatic changes in the room, but enough light appears for you to continue. That is often how the Spirit works with a marked life. He does not flood every corridor at once. He gives enough light to keep you faithful, enough light to keep you from returning to old confusion, enough light to let you notice that the fear you expected is not as loud as it used to be. When that happens, do not dismiss it. The body knows when peace has entered, the jaw loosens, the breath becomes less guarded, the chest opens like a hand unclenching. These physical signs matter because they tell the truth before your mind has caught up. You are not imagining the shift. You are receiving it. And receiving is an act of courage for someone who has spent years bracing for disappointment. The mark of God does not only call you forward, it also teaches your body how to stop waiting for the next blow. That is a profound mercy. It is the mercy of being allowed to rest without fear. There is also a kind of confirmation that comes through restraint, through the things you did not say, the places you did not go, and the compromise you refused, even when no one would have known. Those invisible obediences are not wasted. They are part of the seal on your life. You may never fully know how many unseen harms were avoided because you paused, prayed, or held back. But heaven knows. That is enough. The marked person is not always the loudest in the room. Sometimes the marked person is the one who learns to wait before speaking, to listen before moving, to let peace test the thought before the thought becomes action. That slower pace is not indecision. It is discernment, and discernment protects destiny. You have probably felt the tension between being hurried by pressure and being guided by truth. That tension has been real, yet each time you chose truth, even with trembling hands, you strengthened the line of your own life. The mark was not only on your gifts, it was on your refusals. It was on your no when no one applauded it. It was on your yes when fear tried to delay it. There comes a point when the old narrative loses credibility. The story that said you were forgotten, the voice that said you were too late, the inner script that said you had missed your chance begins to sound thin. It cannot hold the weight of what you have survived. It cannot explain the repeated mercy, the repeated rescue, the repeated return of peace after chaos. So the soul starts to lean toward a different truth. That truth is quieter, but it is sturdier. It says you are being guided. It says your life is being held in a wisdom larger than your present sight. It says your mark is not an accident, and your current season is not the whole story. When that truth starts to take root, even the painful memories begin to change texture. They do not disappear, but they lose their authority over identity. You can remember being hurt without becoming the wound. You can remember being delayed without becoming delay. You can remember being misunderstood without becoming misunderstanding. That is freedom beginning to work. It is not loud, but it is real. And what is real does not need to perform to remain true. You may have thought the mark on your life would make everything easy to identify, but sometimes the mark is discovered only in hindsight. Only after you have passed through the room, only after the door closes, only after you notice that the people who tried to define you cannot follow you into the next place. This is why discernment matters. It helps you notice that the old chaos is no longer your home. It helps you sense when a conversation is pulling you away from what is clean. It helps you recognize when a duty has become an altar to approval. There is sacredness in that recognition. It is not merely self-help, it is alignment with truth, and truth has a way of returning a person to themselves. The more you stand inside it, the less you need the false comfort of performance. The more you stand inside it, the more your speech becomes simple and your steps become sure. That simplicity is one of the signs that the mark is active. It strips away noise. Not because noise is evil, but because it cannot carry what your life is now being asked to hold. Sometimes the evidence is as humble as opening the curtains and noticing that the morning has already arrived while you were still thinking about yesterday. The light did not ask permission to enter. It simply came. That is what grace does. It comes where despair said nothing would come. It enters the room where your mind rehearsed the worst outcome. It settles on the floor, the wall, the table, the tired hands, and says there is more here than you noticed. The marked life learns to receive that kind of light without demanding a spectacle. It learns that a softened heart is not a failed heart. It learns that peace can be enough for today. When you let the light in, even a little, you begin to see how much was preserved. The unfinished things are not proofs of failure. They are spaces where new obedience can take root. The unspoken prayers are not ignored. They are being held. The slow answer is not absent. It is ripening. And the one who is marked is often the one who learns to live without forcing the pace of what is still becoming. There is a difference between a closed season and a dead season. A closed season still has breath in it. It still teaches. It still corrects. It still reveals what cannot go forward. A dead season has no such movement, and your life has not felt dead. It has felt pressed, yes. It has felt narrow, yes. It has felt lonely, yes. But even there, something has remained alive enough to hope. That hope is part of the confirmation. It is not naive. It has been tested. It has survived disappointment and still returned. That return matters. It means your spirit has not made peace with despair. It means the mark on your life is stronger than the discouragement that tried to cover it. And because of that, you can begin to trust your own inward witness again. You do not need to wait for every external thing to line up before you honor what is already true within you. The God who marked you did not do so halfway. He does not stamp a life and then forget what he wrote. If the same scene keeps appearing in your mind, a small door, a dim room, a hand near the latch, it may be because you are standing near the edge of transition. That scene has become a kind of inner symbol, because your spirit knows what your mind is still catching up to. A door implies both enclosure and possibility. It tells you that there has been a boundary, and it also tells you that boundary is not the end of the building. Your life is like that. You have been inside a necessary threshold. You have waited, not perfectly, but faithfully enough to be changed by the waiting. You have learned that some doors open only after the old need to force them has died. This is the kind of wisdom the mark leaves behind. It is less hungry for control, more attentive to timing, more willing to be led by peace than by panic. That is not small. It is the beginning of maturity. And maturity, when it is born in God, has a softness that does not weaken its spine. It simply stops pretending. You are standing in a story that has already started to turn. The turn may not have been obvious at first, because the landscape changed slowly. A little less fear here, a little more steadiness there, a small refusal to return to what once dominated you. A gentle clarity around who and what drains your soul. These are not random improvements. They are signs that the mark is doing its work. When God confirms a life, he often does it by adjusting desire before adjusting circumstance. He changes what you can no longer live without. He changes what you are willing to tolerate. He changes how quickly you settle. That inner rearranging is holy. It protects you from receiving too small a future with too large a smile. And if there has been grief in this process, that grief is not failure. It is the cost of honesty. You are no longer agreeing to live against your own spirit. That is the kind of agreement heaven honors. The place where you were once most unsure is becoming the place where you are most teachable. That is not because the hurt was good, but because the mercy inside the hurt did not let you remain unchanged. You are more able now to notice what is true in a room. You are more able to sense when words and spirit do not match. You are more able to tell when peace is present and when it has been replaced by performance. These are deep forms of wisdom. They do not come from theory alone. They come from being walked through fire without being consumed. You may not celebrate that in the same way others celebrate success, but heaven notices. The mark on your life is not merely for public moments. It is for the secret places where no one sees you choose truth over convenience. Those moments have built a foundation, and foundations are usually hidden. They are not admired while they are being poured. They are only understood when the house can stand. The life that has been confirmed does not need to pretend it is untouched. It has scars, and the scars are not shameful. They are evidence that you survived without losing everything. More importantly, attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you. And strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.